You're kind of digital sounding. Can you get closer to your mic?
Didn't hear you.
Leanne,
You're too relaxed.
Me?
She said.
Yeah, that's better. Now I can hear you.
Sorry. Okay, hold on a minute. Let me get,
I think you need to be closer to your mic like that.
computers, I'm only not even a foot away.
We chopped your head off.
Ask Robert.
You're accentuating,
I
So we ain't gonna be able to see it here, except turn around.
your well endowed aspect.
There you
I
go.
hope this petitioner.
Well,
Right? They're not
I
here.
mean, y'all, seriously, I don't know what to do. I can't, can you
Yeah,
hear?
the attorney.
Yes. We can hear you.
For them should be coming, I hope so.
I would think that they would come.
This small white thing,
Yeah,
really?
I hope they're
There's a
coming.
car pulling in now.
The weather is unbelievable out
Yeah,
there
that's true.
on Military and Market. It's really bad.
Rain slows it all down, doesn't it?
Going for a walk.
And pouring.
Hey,
All right, I've
Robert?
changed locations. Can y'all hear me now? Because I've changed locations.
Yes.
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 Okay, better?
Yes.
Okay,
We can see your nice earrings.
thank you. I'm all ready for dinner. I heard y'all talking about the parking.
Hey,
Um,
yeah.
We're being,
Are we
recorded.
live? I think we're live.
you know, people
I think
Well,
her
we-
internet connection is bad enough though, where she's breaking up really bad.
Yeah.
And yeah, and
Yeah, I was over there where my wife,
her lips aren't.
because I
synced
was
with her
closer to my
speaking.
Wi-Fi a while ago. Hold on a second. But I was better with my Wi-Fi a while ago.
Hey, Karen,
was closer
let's,
to-
let's do that under new business. That
I
parking,
wasn't even, I was
is that,
doing it off the record, but I'm happy to bring it up.
yeah, I mean, if there's something you feel
I do.
important, let's do it, yeah. You need to run for alderman, but it's too late.
Yeah.
All right, can y'all hear me?
still kind of,
Is
You're
that
still
better?
kind of cutting in and out. We can hear like every other word, kind of.
Hey, Leanne, why don't you
Well,
call
I'm
in the landline number and just leave your camera on? And that way we'll still have video and there won't be a latency with the audio.
Okay, do what? Now say that again, Robert.
Call the landline number.
Which one is that one? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers here. Dial in your location.
I think that any of them would do.
Let me try it with my cell phone and see if that's better.
Okay.
Okay.
Hold on.
Sure.
yeah, my understanding is you need to not wait till things are done. It'll be much harder to undo.
Say that again, real quick.
Don't wait till it's done. It'll be harder to undo.
Oh, okay, all right. All right, thank you. It's after 5:30, so I think we should go
Do we
ahead.
want
and
to see if we can get
start.
Leanne?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just y'all go ahead. I'll get on here.
Okay, you're sounding better already.
Yeah, well, I guess we can wait, because all we can do without her is a pledge of allegiance.
She called in. Robert, is she set?
She's calling in right now.
Okay, well, just let us know and we'll hold off.
Okay.
I can see and hear
Mark
y'all
it down.
fine.
Sure.
Mine iced tea, yes. It's watered down now. with
She's
the
got her
rain.
name on her cup.
Well, my husband's been under the weather, so
I've got, trolley stops closed,
oh,
Why?
you're kidding.
COVID.
He's been tested twice. So
What, they have COVID?
One of their employees.
I've heard
tested
some restaurants
positive,
that
so it's
closed down.
closed.
I've
And my
not heard
boss's son has it. He just graduated high school. He's got it.
Well,
Can
I-
y'all hear me?
I can't take
Yes.
the risk.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, can you hear us?
Yeah, I hear y'all fine.
Okay. You sound better.
Okay, I'm not gonna move. How about that?
Okay.
All right.
I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order. And if everyone would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from June 1, 2021. Does anybody have any comments, questions?
There was a,
The meetings, the minutes in page 2, I think, it said, doesn't say Fayetteville Street, it says another street, Federal.
Oh, good catch.
Yeah. Needs to be changed to Fayetteville Street under Catherine,
Brunswick?
yeah. 605, yeah. Mhm.
Did you catch that, Robert?
Yes, I'll correct that. Thank you.
Okay.
That's the only thing I saw.
My only question was the comment that was made in here that in order to correct this typo, it has to be a text amendment.
That's correct. That typo is actually in the UDO. I did not make that typo.
So are you and Tony going to put that on an agenda item coming up?
We'll have to readopt 160D sometime in the next couple of weeks. So that'd probably be a good time to do it.
Is that something that comes back to us?
Yes, I think that it has to go through the planning board.
Okay. So you'll put that on the agenda next time.
Yes, we can do that.
Thank you. And then I guess I can ask a question now. Our comments at the end of this discussion were to see what the board wanted to do with this. Did you get any feedback from the board yet?
I have not.
Taken it to the board yet.
Okay,
We have not.
but you will be
We will be.
taking it, okay. Does anybody else have any further comments or questions or corrections? Their motion to approve?
I'll make, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve.
And I'll
I'll
second it.
Okay, Robert, Karen motioned and Cheryl seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
I,
Good, we still got. Yeah. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is under new business, agenda item A review and discussion of text amendment to add a small lot exception in the C5 commercial district. And I assume we will have a presentation from Tony.
Staff and then. Yes.
Okay.
Chairman Smith and planning board members, we did receive this application on June the 30th, 2021. So text amendment application from Miss Mason Sutton. She is the authorized agent for Kevin Walker. He's the manager of KWRC LLC. It's a text amendment to chapter 155.6.5.7. The petitioner has requested that this chapter, this section of the ordinance be amended with this text amendment. This is for the C5 commercial district only, which is across the bridge. This would allow for accessory structures, decks, and patios to have a setback of 15 feet for the front setback instead of 30 feet. The rear setback for accessory structures, decks, and patios will be amended to allow for a 10-foot setback instead of 20. The parking standards, landscaping requirements, buffer yards will be exempted for the small lot exception. You see the proposed ordinance on that page 1 there, ordinance number 2021-1832. And I'll read some of them, may read all of it, but under J, the small lot exception, for the purpose of this section, small lot shall mean a parcel or tract located both in the C5 commercial district and on Wrightsville Avenue. that has a total size of no more than 21,000 square feet, but it also has to contain one or more existing buildings. It's going to be modified also. Number one, the front yard minimum setbacks shall be 15 feet on the next page with regards to those decks and patios that we just discussed. Number two, for the side yard, shall be the minimum setback set out in section 155.657F, shall be the lesser of 10 feet or the distance between the existing buildings and the rear property line, except where a property joins a residential district, in which case the side yard setback shall be 20. So that kind of reads just like our ordinance reads there, the more restrictive one. And then under three, the rear yard minimal setbacks and 155.657G shall be 10 foot regarding accessory structures, decks, and patios. And then the following items, 4, 5, 6, and 7 will be exempted from the ordinance. Parking standards set out in sections 155.91.4.5 and also the 155.91.4.6. Also the landscaping requirements at 155.917, the buffer yard requirements in section 155.918. Then there's another section that talks about additional buffer yards set out in 155.919. Staff's analysis of this text amendment, if this moves on to the Board of Aldermen, if adopted, it would apply to, right now, I think we've come up with 7 properties located on Wrightsville Avenue only. They can be no larger than 21,000 square feet. It has to contain an existing building. Then the setbacks only apply to accessory structures, decks, and patios. When applying these existing setbacks, it can be difficult for business owners to comply with parking standards, landscaping, buffer yard requirements on these small lots in the C5 district. Now, in the past, if you notice that building, we get complaints on that building all the time. It's run down, it's trashed, people park on it. I think it's been vacant for 3 or 4 years. I know time flies, but we've met, myself and Robert and Tim Owens have met with, when it was for sale, potential individuals wanting to buy it. There was always very restrictive on the setbacks. Some of them, didn't want to go through the conditional use permit process. We met with other individuals who wanted to open up a business there. And basically we said, well, there's got to be some text amendments for what you want to do. So tonight we're not looking at the conditional use permit because that's going to come later. But let's just say for a coffee shop, for example, that we met with a couple of people for, if it's outside seating, they wanted to do outside seating, they wanted to put a patio. So that 30-foot setback was real restrictive. So we've met a couple times with the attorney and we discussed it. The first text amendment was amended. We still feel like the setbacks are important, the 30-foot setback. So we tweaked that and did half for the 15 feet for those structures. But again, we've met with multiple people trying to rent the building and some things had to happen. So this is the first start of that. We're not discussing a CUP or actually the site plan, but we'll get into that site plan a little bit later. But we did send this out to department heads. We got no comments from police, fire, or public works on this. This is consistent with our CAMA land use plan. The town does encourage commercial businesses providing basic goods and services to year-round visitors and residents. We did advertise this in the Star News, announcing this meeting, the October 3rd meeting. And it ran on July the 22nd and July 26th in the Star News. Staff's recommendation that the planning board afford a favorable recommendation for the text amendment to 155.6.5.7 for the C5 commercial district. Now, in the attachments, you have the application, the ordinance, and in that we gave you some of the codes that we look at. The commercial district 5, 155.9.1.456 are the requirements that we're not looking at. Some of those are pretty simple things. The more the landscaping buffers and additional buffers were also exempted. And then on the last page, we got the affected parcels there. And then there was a site plan included in there, and that's just general information. we're not approving the site plan tonight, but it's just in general, what would those setbacks look like? And you can turn to that page to see, and that's a unique piece of property there. And
That's
it's-
page 12, right?
Yeah, mine's not numbered, but yeah.
Yeah, 11.
So you see these,
No, mine's not either.
the parking spaces are there. So the
13
parking,
is.
Okay.
yeah, so that's it right there. So the parking spaces meet the minimum requirements as far as size and length and the access ways. It's just those bumpers and things like that that were exempted. And the landscaping was exempt. It just makes it very tight to require that on these lots.
Mhm.
Now, we did do something, and I don't know if any of these members for the Pose parking lot. It's been several years now. We did something very similar there where we exempted certain things, landscaping and things like that for that inside parking lot. So staff felt like this is a need to happen, but just wanted to present it to you for your consideration. And if you got any questions, I'll try to answer.
Question for you on
Yeah.
the site plan. I don't know if.
Yeah, is there a way to put that up there? I was just gonna ask that.
Where
It's hard to
where are
read
the
it.
buffer areas that,
Well, that's what we're saying. We're
They're
exempt.
foregoing
The buffer-
those.
but where are they? I mean, you're talking about all edges of the
Yeah,
plot, even though it's mostly a parking lot.
yeah, so they're going to be exempt if you forward this home with the buffer yards. If not, they would be required, maybe Allen's Lane. You probably wouldn't want to require anything on Wrightsville Avenue. You could do some because of vision, especially in that triangle area. You wouldn't want to do anything at all in that area as far as visuals and things like that. Some of the other businesses that were trying to go in there, it was very difficult to even make it happen because of that corner up there. As far as people coming in and out, there are two driveway cuts that are there. Those wouldn't be needed again off of Wrightsville Avenue.
You said they would or would not be needed.
Well, they'd leave them just like they are.
Okay,
Yes.
yes, okay.
And Wrightsville Avenue is a city of Wilmington street. It's-
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna have two questions and either you or the petitioner could probably answer them. Number one, how does this fit in with the Wrightsville, what's it called, the small area plan?
Yeah,
Does it comply with that?
okay, good question.
And maybe y'all can, pardon me? Okay, I think it's important that we look at that. And then I'm kind of with Neil. Okay, so if we're gonna exempt parking standards, landscaping requirements, and buffer yards, what will be required? I mean, they've got to have some landscaping on there.
Well, I think,
And the parking standards are, I think we need to know what they're gonna be defined as on this in this
Yeah.
particular.
well, if you
section.
look at on page 12 there, it does, I said the widths are correct. The lengths of the parking is correct, and then the aisle width is correct in there. So those things are what's correct. It's the bumper requirement and buffers would be the things that we're trying to get rid of there, or they're trying to be exempted.
But if we, and maybe I'm getting into too much detail too soon, but if we eliminate the bumper requirements, then aren't the cars gonna hang over the sidewalk?
No, I don't think so there. The sidewalk, if you look on Wrightsville Avenue, appears to be some,
Isn't there a lift there or something?
Robert knows there's a sidewalk there. I don't know if, not sure.
If you want me to share my screen, I can show you pictures.
That would
of
be
the lot.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we can't,
It's hard to see the
Yeah.
writing and stuff.
it's pretty small.
Well, the only bad thing is, even though what we're talking about specific to this property, what about the other properties?
Well, that's the thing, this last page.
Right.
Yeah,
And also you said we're not approving the site plan.
No, you're not
so-
approving,
Yeah.
because what could happen is, you're just looking at the text amendment. If the site plan is, you're not approving the site plan at all tonight, because let's just say the next project, if this passes, goes through the board, it would take a conditional use permit, maybe with the use they want to do, then it has to come back to you again. if it's that type of use.
I mean, I'm gonna go on record as saying I was not opposed to going forward with this, but we've got to do it right.
Yeah.
It seems like you're looking to approve something, but really not knowing how it's gonna be used or the
Yeah, but
impact as regards the other.
Yeah, but remember, y'all did not want me to bring a CUP and a text amendment the same night.
Understood.
So that's why
Right.
we're doing it like this,
Mhm.
Right.
because we don't know what could be there. It could be a coffee shop with outside seating, it could be a restaurant, convenience
Can
store.
I-
This is all about creating usable space outside of the existing one.
Yeah, potential if that individual, because we talked to a couple of them and they said, well, we want outside seating. And I said, well, the setbacks are 30 feet. And then we wouldn't hear anything for 6 months or a year. And then somebody else would come back and we go, you gotta have a 30-foot setback, or you gotta have text.
You know, perhaps I'm missing something here, but basically you could just have scrape it clean and have parking spots and seating, and there's no landscape.
Can I add something?
Yes.
Okay, because I know, can y'all hear me?
Yes,
I think the issue here is that they want to put something in there that's nice and not attract something we don't want in that spot, like a vape store, like another convenience store. My understanding and the way I'm reading this is that if the owner permits this all himself, then he can draw in a more desirable tenant that will have something to offer the community. And so if he has the text amendment, then you can do seating on the side or a little outdoor patio. It's more attractive to somebody looking to put in something nice in there.
and the attorney that's here may have some ideas when she gets up to address the landscape.
Right. But what in response to your question, Leanne, is, I think what Tony's saying is it had a lot of people that want to develop this site, but it just doesn't work because A, it's an odd shape, and B, it's small.
Right.
And in order to put something nice in there with
They want
decent
seating now,
parking,
seat.
it just doesn't, financially, it's not going to work.
Right.
What's the definition of the word nice in that? Because
Well, I'm just using that, but yeah, we will never be able to just define nice.
what were you thinking in trying to express that? I'm just,
Like a coffee shop or a bakery or.
Bakery,
Something
Yeah.
other than an abandoned piece of property.
Right.
yeah.
okay.
And what they're saying is, right now with the ordinance, the way it's written, they could put a coffee shop in that building and it could be a nice coffee shop, but there's no room to park it with the setbacks that they have to work with now. So they're trying to create an opportunity to create enough decent parking to support a nice facility.
But also on the flip side of that, if you don't mind me interjecting,
No, I'm done.
is if you allow, in my mind, if you allow something like this with outside seating, cut back on, the space, green space that we have to have and other requirements, you're making this space so that someone besides like a vape store or just, a run-in beat up
Convenience mart.
store, goes in the spot. Because then all of a sudden you've opened up the eyes to people who may want to, develop this property or put something quote unquote nice in there. Nice is, depends on who's thinking it, but
Sorry.
no, you're fine. I'm just saying, like, I feel like by allowing this, and I would love to see this up there if possible, just page 12 on the big screen,
Yeah, Robert, can
But,
you pull that up?
just to have an idea in my mind. But I do think it opens up a lot of possibilities for somebody putting something worthwhile in there other than a.
Question, Tony, are the 6 other properties developed? Are there any undeveloped
Yeah,
properties?
we
that fall?
feel like those could qualify for the same thing.
And one is the
Right, that's what I'm
old,
saying. Are these 6 neighbors?
Taco
developed
Bell.
Yeah.
properties?
The old-
Yeah,
One's
they're
the old
developed
Taco
properties,
Bell.
but they're,
Old
if you go
Italian.
to the
The
last,
old
just about
Italian
last
slash
page,
ABC
you'll see
store.
those.
The other gas
Right.
station, which looks
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the pumps
I
are on a
just
separate
didn't
piece
Go
of
to the
property.
next page, that last.
And then
one.
that C must be that whatever that
The very
financial,
last one,
that
you'll
big
see
building that,
highlighted
yeah.
area.
and then G.
No,
There's
you
like,
can go
What is-
right here.
G is
See,
part
Robert
of
put those in a
yeah.
color coded there, that shows you.
What is G?
And the
that
text,
harbor
and the
hotel.
text amendment
It's
says
just
it has
part
to
of the
have an
hotel,
existing
so it must be a
structure on
separate
Yes,
piece
it
of real,
does.
they must
It
have.
can't be like
multiple-
just a vacant
Yeah,
Well, it
is
has to
lot.
have a
So-
building on
and
it,
then-
so it's,
And
That's
this
not-
property in question.
Yeah, it is
well,
harbor.
is already fully
Is it?
developed
Yeah.
out, paved and.
because that's air.
This
right
is
there.
the
Somewhat out of
Parker's
tune
building.
As it relates
Right.
to.
Right,
So
Yeah.
it's part of the motel or hotel or lodge, but it's the end part. It's kind of that tall part.
Is that
Oh.
correct, Tony? G?
G,
Okay, G, no, well, I think that's the Waterway Lodge is.
Yeah,
The way
yeah.
I see it.
Harbor, waterway. But
Waterway
it's
Lodge.
like one part of it.
Yeah,
They must have multiple parcels for the.
Tower.
not sure.
yeah.
That tower.
Okay, that's
what I was
interesting.
thinking.
Yeah, I
Okay.
see it there,
Well, they're privately owned, so maybe that's.
you know.
But the other ones that are outlined in yellow don't have, what,
It's just the
There-
highlighted ones in the pink that's the only ones that will apply. to it.
okay,
And the highlighted ones, I assume, are the pieces that are still in the town of Wrightsville Beach.
Yes, it
Okay.
is.
okay.
And one thing we could, and I'm not saying we do that, but let's say, once we get to the conditional use stage, permit stage for this project, we could require some trees or buffering if you choose to.
Right,
I mean, I don't know how, the question is what direction do you give or whatever on that?
Mhm.
But it can be happen on conditional use permit.
Well, can we leave 4, 5, 6, and 7 in there and then on a conditional use,
I
take
think-
them out?
I don't think so. I think it would be, I don't think we could consider if those are there.
It's just easier to
Yeah,
remove something than it is to try to add it back in.
yeah. Because
You know,
Yeah,
the
you're-
zoning and all is okay, but I think there's other things might not be an issue for this piece of property, but it might be at the next one.
okay,
I just didn't know if, or we could make those conditional on a case by case basis.
I can't really see. Well, I guess
let me
you
see if you can pull that up. I'll be right.
What is the 4, 5, 6, and 7 with the stand parking and all that?
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Park-
just say-
buffer yard, okay,
Blanket statement that
oh,
the,
7.
those requirements are exempted,
Yeah.
but then it doesn't say what the new requirements would be.
Yeah, I just,
Yeah.
I mean, when we did Pose, Pose has trees, their parking lot.
So I wonder, could we do
modified.
it-
It wasn't just completely.
Oh, yeah.
obliterated.
Pardon me?
It wasn't completely obliterated, it was modified.
Right, right.
so they took the standards as they were and modified them. I'm just thinking, can we leave those in there and then modify those standards at the conditional use permit
Especially
stage?
considering there's,
Robert's going to scan in page 12 here in a second.
Okay.
considering there's other potential lots that really aren't. on
It's
radar
up there. I
at the
think if he just got it or whatever.
He can't get rid of that.
Oh, he
There's,
Well, can he? The meeting's being recorded. That's what's in the way.
yeah,
Hey, Robert?
Well, he got the 7 parcels up there.
Yeah, I can't get rid of the meeting.
Meeting is
recorded
being
thing.
recorded.
But here we go. I'll share the site plan so that you can see a little bit better maybe.
I've got a good view on mine. What do y'all want to know?
Okay.
Well, we can't read it. It's so small in our printed material. We can't read like what the dashed lines mean for one thing.
The dash line said,
That's the
Um,
setbacks, the 7.5 setbacks
yeah,
For what
And it-
though?
from the property line. And then the interior dash line is a 24-foot set. Wait, that's not 24. It's the front setback.
That's the front. So it's a 30?
Yeah, that's the 30-foot setback.
So these are the current setbacks.
That's correct.
Okay, and then what is the outside dash line? Is that the proposed setbacks?
It just says
Edge of-
7.5 foot
Yard.
landscaping.
landscape yard.
Yeah.
That's
Landscape.
That's the proposed.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's what we need to know.
Yeah.
All right. Is it going to 7.5 in the front? No, it's going to 15.
it's going to 15 for the front, 10 on the sides, and then on the back, there's, it's the same, it's,
It's a 10-foot setback on the back.
Yeah,
yes. So it's just for the patios and things like that. The building still has to be at the 30 and the 20.
Right, but so why is it 7.5 shown on the plan if it's proposed 15?
Soon.
I'm not sure why they showed the 7.5 there, so.
So it's a front and a rear and one side.
Yes,
So the front is facing Wrightsville Avenue, the
Yes.
rear is facing
Now,
Allen's Lane,
right.
and the
Yes.
side,
So the parking is right, if that's the 7.5 foot line, the parking is at that. If you look at the parking spaces, you can see it's going
Yeah.
right to it.
Mhm.
So the line that we're looking at, is it the 20 or is it the 15 or the 30? It's gotta be 30, isn't it?
Well, 30 is for the building, remember?
If
20
we're taking
If this,
15, so we're taking it down to 15.
right, so 30 feet is going to be 15 feet. What they're showing there on that front is 20 feet. It's actually going to be 15 or 5 feet more in there, so.
So you're saying back to the edge of the parking spaces.
Right,
That's an overhang, right? Is that,
yes. I think what happened is, I don't think that's what site plan do y'all have? Let me look right here. Okay.
I think we have the same one. We just
No,
can't-
Yeah,
because that
that's
doesn't have the
different.
drawing. That doesn't have the deck.
So what happened is what you got in your packet is the correct one. He may have, there was 2 of them. This is the one to look at here. So
Okay, so what he's looking at might be
it is
completely.
different, yes.
That's what, I can't read these numbers to see.
Yeah,
So
it's small.
it's technically not the side of the building isn't in the setback. So it's just because it's been that way for a
Right.
while. It'll be okay. Okay.
So the setbacks for the building are conforming. It's what we had to do for the patios and things like that, the exception here.
I got a question here. What's up there is what's in. the package.
Exactly.
Okay, and this is a site plan. This is not how it currently exists at all.
No, they're not the same. What we have is current.
That's
That's
not.
not the same. Look, on yours, you have a little outdoor deck. That decking's not on that drawing.
I'm sorry, I couldn't read it. That's the problem.
Now
Can't tell
remember, we're not looking at the site plan for approval at all.
I understand.
We're just.
Right.
So we're not looking at it for approval. So there'll be if it comes back to us, there'll be another site plan that could be a little bit different. We're just showing what the potential could be.
Given what's been proposed, which is exempting all those things, this is what could happen. is what-
Yes. You'd have a patio in there, you would have, the parking spaces meet the standards, the aisle widths meet the standards. It's the landscaping and things like that, and buffer yards that are different.
But you're saying that they're different, but in the one statement, it says they're exempt. So,
Well, no, I'm saying they'll be exempt. They'll be exempt from,
and I just,
Those 4 things will be exempt.
yes.
yeah, and I would like to have it where it's we modify it, but modify it in the conditional use. I don't necessarily think we blanket get rid of them.
Well, I mean, I don't think we like that either, but remember, it's just for
Or is there a way to state that?
like I say, when faced and the attorney gets up here, she may have some ideas to how to do that, so.
Well, why don't we hear from
Okay.
Jason next, and then maybe that'll clear up some
Okay.
confusion. Thanks, Tony.
I think it's better practice to not have an eye test like this thing in the future. I mean, you can't read it.
I made a note to make sure we get bigger ones and up on the screen. That's gonna be helpful.
Thank you.
I'm Faison Sutton, I know some of you, attorney Marcus and Taylor Gibson, and as Terry said, I represent Kevin Walker and his company that owns 706 Wrightsville Avenue. I think you all may know Kevin, he's been a long time Wrightsville Beach resident and property owner. So you were sort of asking questions, Neil, about site plan and sort of putting the cart before the horse, and it is a little confusing. But the reason why we're doing this is, as Tony said, there have been a lot of different people who have wanted to look at the property and consider leasing it. But we've run into all these roadblocks where it's not able to be developed the way they would want it to be. So Kevin's at a point where he's not able to commit to any particular tenant. He can't commit that, yes, you can have outdoor seating, or, yes, you can have X number of square feet out in the yard. So he's a little bit stuck, and that's why we're doing it in this kind of string order, where we're asking for a text amendment to relax the requirements of the C5 districts in some ways for these limited small lots. If that gets approved, then the next step will be, he will then be able to go to several different possible tenants, work with them, figure out who is going to be the best and most complementary use, and then come back to most likely with a CUP application, which will have a much better and more detailed site plan and specifics. As he's been working through and talking with different tenants, I think two issues have come up. First is the C5 district, and Tony actually helped me understand why these various little sites over the bridge are within the Rights of Beach jurisdiction, and then B, why the C5 district, what that really is for. It's actually much more appropriate for larger tracts and strip centers, strip malls, shopping centers, things like the Galleria. So it has much stronger requirements for parking spaces, buffers, setbacks, and it just doesn't work for sites this small, particularly ones that are also triangle shaped, but really I think under 21,000 square feet, it's difficult to meet all those requirements. So of course, this application is not just for this site. We have tried to limit it, the definition of a small lot, as you see, was sites under 21,000 square feet that are in the C5 district. They're on Wrightsville Avenue, that also currently have a building. So with the text amendment, you try to sort of limit it, and so it's not going to open up the door to too many sites that don't even know what. We can probably limit that further. There are certainly ways we can define that differently to tighten it up more. So that's the first issue, is just the C5 district does not work very well for some of these smaller tracts. And then the second issue is, of the most ideal tenants that Kevin wants to attract, and that I would assume other owners would want to attract, they're all going to need outdoor seating. For COVID, here we are ramping up again, they've got to have outdoor seating, they've got to have the social distancing. So he's got to have the ability to put a deck out there. I think that's probably going to be the case for these other sites if they get redeveloped with restaurants, things like that. And he has great hopes and goals to get a good business like a coffee shop, bakery, ice cream shop, small business. I can tell you, I heard Karen, I think, mention possible vape shops, and from what Kevin has told me and his broker, yes, they are getting contacted a lot by vape shops and convenience stores. And that's not what he wants to do, but that would be one use that probably could just be a plug and play.
Mhm.
That's not what he wants to do. He feels very vested in Wrightsville Beach and wants to get a good business that's going to be great for residents and tourists, and especially the neighbors across the street, across Allen's Lane. So because of those two issues, that's really why we're here and why we're doing it in sort of this order.
So I have a question. If we could define or make that kind of a little more narrow in the description, could you add in there that it has to be adjacent to a residential area? Which would throw out B, D, E, and F.
What's behind C or around C? So I tried to look to see if C is resident.
No, it was an if.
I think the residents are across Allen's Lane, I think, and businesses are behind it, I think now.
So because Allen's Lane is there, you couldn't say adjacent or within so many 100 feet.
You could.
I mean, you can say whatever you want, I
Yeah.
think,
What
but
is what?
I'm just thinking, I'm like you. It makes me a little nervous to just throw out all those things, but I'm wondering if we put in the text amendment, that it has to be within,
Or how about if it adjoins a residential district, just like you have on the rear setback? I assume that's why you have that.
yeah,
Could you not stipulate that all the properties that this goes to would have to be adjoining a residential district?
yeah. Well, that's adjacent. That's what I was, I mean.
Yeah,
I
but
guess it's not
that's their
technically-
wording. It-
I guess it's not technically adjacent with Allen's Lane, but I'm just wondering if you could throw that in there, because then that would limit it to A, in my opinion, and y'all tell me if I'm wrong, it would limit it to A, C, and
Judy.
G. Actually, I'm not even sure G would apply, because,
And I don't know that what's behind that C lot. I can't tell if that's, see, it looks like there's parking behind it.
that's houses.
This is a house, but this looks like parking, doesn't it? I tried to look on Google.
We can, yeah, we could.
I mean,
possibly do
I don't know,
that.
I'm just trying to,
I think what I understand the text amendments is they can't be site specific. So I can't just say, as to 706
Right.
Wrightsville.
mhm, mhm.
So we want to limit it, but we don't want to limit it so much that it ends up being site specific.
Well,
Limited
See
to
that-
isosceles
that building.
shape.
It looks
yeah.
like the parking's not in it.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
So, I mean, that's one aspect. Is there a further limitation so that this doesn't all suddenly apply across a larger group? But it still comes back to the issue of this automatic exemption.
Well,
And
that's what
is-
Karen's saying, if we can
That's what I'm saying. if
say
we
that this
can-
only applies to small, all that's stated about the small property, provided it adjoins a residential neighborhood or whatever, residential property, which is what they've got in that rear setback, I assume for that reason.
But what does that accomplish relative?
It takes
to-
away all
It
those
takes
properties.
away B, D, E, and F.
They no longer are relevant with this.
But what does it accomplish relative to the exemptions?
Because I think the reason we don't like the exemptions in there is we're worried about what all these other properties could do. Correct?
I'm still concerned about this particular lot.
Yeah, I am too.
Sans kind of landscape.
I think,
It being
I think-
a triangle paved with a building and a patio and outdoor seating.
well, I think anything looks better than what's on the site now.
I don't disagree with you, but why does it have to all of a sudden just eradicate?
Mhm.
I mean, I coming back to.
They're not removing anything though.
No, the toothpaste is out of the tube. It's already a fully developed concrete lot.
Yeah, it's fully white.
And any landscaping along Wrightsville Avenue would be hazard
Yeah,
because of the site.
I don't agree with that. I mean, everybody uses that excuse, but I know there's site distance triangles and stuff, but there still can be some landscaping.
Yeah, I think if you, let's say we require the buffer yards and landscape, I think it's going to interfere with parking then. I think you're going to reduce parking so much. You're going to have nice landscaping and then you're only going to have,
I think we're
10
making
spaces.
assumptions and we, first of all, we need an answer to, does this comply with the Wrightsville Beach or the Wrightsville Avenue
corridor.
corridor plan? Because there might be requirements in there for every lot to have landscaping. I'm not that familiar with that ordinance anymore, but that's a city of Wilmington plan that this lot would have to comply with.
Well, I don't think it would. I think we had Erin, she was on that committee for a few years with the city. I still think we can do, we can look and see what that says, but I don't think we have to follow all their guidelines since it's Wrightsville Beach zoning, in my opinion. We can check with that plan.
Well, I guess my concern, and I'll be quiet, let everybody else talk, but my concern, I think, is the same as Neil's. You remove these, you say these 4 items they'll be exempted. Parking standards, landscaping requirements, buffer yards, and additional buffer yards So what are the landscaping requirements then? If it's totally removed, there's not gonna be any landscaping requirements? Is this what we're saying? I don't agree with that at all. There's gotta be some landscaping out here somewhere. And they can do it with this plan.
What could we learn from Pose as far as the modifications that were made to enable their small lot?
And I mean, can't this all be planted between the property line and the dash line, that you have on the plan? And I know we're not approving this plan, but it looks like what you're saying is this plan would probably work for a tenant. Can't that all be landscaped?
It can, I think it's,
Concrete though.
it's a lot, like I said, for where that type of requirement is more appropriate for a larger tract. I mean, I've seen a rendering where they did try to fit it all in, and it was basically, you couldn't see past the trees because they're all, if you have to get the exact number of trees that they're required.
So they were trying to fit to existing requirements, not modified requirements.
Right, yeah. I mean, I think you can, it's basically gonna be a wall of trees if you actually had to meet the exact.
Well, yeah, I agree with you 100%, but what I'm saying is, okay, so we're gonna completely remove the existing landscaping requirements, but then let's put something back in place. Let's say we want 5 trees along there total, or, so many trees per foot, and that can be done. There can be landscaping in the right of way out there in Wrightsville Avenue that can be low shrubbery that, in fact, typically you want the headlights to be screened when they're shining out onto Wrightsville Avenue. I mean, that's a typical landscape requirement. So what I'm saying is, okay, we're gonna agree to remove the existing requirements, but we've got to have something to replace it. And I know it's gonna be a lot less, but we're at least gonna have something rather than zero.
I mean, I know, and Kevin, it will be landscape, but I know that's not good enough,
Right, yeah.
So certainly, I think you would be open to, yeah, I mean, if we can come up with something that's not as inappropriate for the site. Yeah, absolutely, I think you would agree to.
Yeah, they've got some land around the patio and things that they can do, so.
So maybe we look at, getting a landscape architect to look and see what would look nice, but it's not too dense.
Didn't take up too much room.
Right.
With regard to the parking standards, what's gone away by virtue of what you've got rendered here?
So the parking, what we kept is the life safety type measures for parking spaces, how big they have to be, the handicap spaces. What we took out were the bumpers and then this buffer between the bumper requirements. Just sort of talking with staff, it seemed like those might not be critical.
The purpose of a bumper is to stop the car from continuing
Right.
too far into whatever's there. Then what is here? Is there sidewalks here?
Yeah.
looking at 12
I
page
think there is a
12.
sidewalk on the Wrightsville Beach side, looked like on the map.
That's right, there is.
I was trying to look at it on Google Maps here to see what,
That's what I looked at too.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So your biggest concern is the separation between the bumper and the walkways.
Yeah, just take up a lot of room.
So not so much the bumpers per se, but that spacing.
That reduces 3.5 feet if you apply that, so.
Right.
it doesn't seem to be any kind of a sidewalk on the Allen's Lane side.
No.
No, I don't think there is.
Mm-mm.
No, there's nothing over there.
Yeah, maybe it's a paid parking lot, but it's also been gutted for its tanks and all that kind of stuff.
So the way the parking standards are written now, would they have to provide sidewalks on the Allen Lane side?
I don't
No,
think so on Allen's Lane.
Okay. because I didn't, it just says sidewalks, paved sidewalk per town specification.
Right.
So it's not required.
I think we would have to do it right, so if it was not already there.
Right, on rights, but Allen's Lane, no. Okay.
That's my
The
understanding.
outdoor whatever it is that you're looking to gain as far as usable space, for serving customers. Can you point it out on page 12 somewhere? Because I can't read. what it is.
So,
Is
patio
this-
area?
is it
This
just
is
this?
outdoor right here.
Yeah.
And that's outdoor right there.
Yeah, I think, so the existing building's there,
Hmm.
right, and that's just future, but possible,
Mhm.
that's where there would be. patio,
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's just a concrete pad right now.
It
I
just
don't
says
know.
concrete.
Yeah,
And then what, it's a kind of a wraparound thing, is that?
it's just, it says the concrete.
It says concrete.
concrete pad. I think that's existing.
So the existing pathway into the parking lot, that's what's there now is what you captured here, that you're not changing the flow in and out of the parking area.
Right. Yeah, exactly. In fact, I mean, we could have taken that patio bigger if not for the driveway.
Albeit on the Allen Lane side, you block that, what now is just completely open, you block that with parking spaces. And the only way into the parking space is by entering the parking lot. You don't just randomly pull into a spot accessible by Allen Lane, right?
Right, that's right. Yeah, yes. Because there, I mean, there will be landscaping, even if there was not a requirement, there would be landscaping all, all in Allen's Lane.
And when you get to the top of the side yard, that's a point. I guess that's gonna have to, or would have some sort of landscaping. Is there any consideration for changing the way that strange angle at Allen Lane comes onto Wrightsville?
It's a nightmare.
Yeah, especially if you're pulling out of the hardware store, you don't know if it's
Yeah.
somebody flying up and kind of pull onto Allen Lane.
Yeah, that's been that way forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things, if you start applying the buffers, if you look at that same page 12, on the parking, you start squeezing them in together, then we have another issue with aisle clearance, people backing out. So,
Right.
right now, it probably barely works, but when you start putting that buffer, you start pushing everything in, and then we've either lost 5 or 6 spaces or more than that, trying to keep 24 feet in between them is one other concern. And I'm not saying what you're saying is not right. It's just, I think if we apply them, then, you may only get half the parking that we got now, maybe, I don't know.
So if you could explain the parking spaces on Allen Lane. The way it's drawn here, what's the distance, I guess, to the setback? There's a dotted line and it becomes a solid line with parking spaces. What is this distance?
Yeah, so it's typed really small, 7.5 landscape yard, and I think that actually comes from the code, and I just found it. And it was basically, there has to be a 7.5 foot buffer in between any streets and yards.
Okay, so that's the setback.
That's 7.5
Yeah,
foot
the
line.
minimum, sorry, it's the minimum depth of all street yards shall be 7.5 feet, is what it says.
Okay, you've also then got all these parking spaces, and those are standard size spaces, I think is what you said.
That's right.
So Tony, I'm not following what you were saying, that if you start squeezing stuff in, you mean if we don't allow the 7.5?
Right. In other words, they drew it as 7.5. The question is I haven't looked at it that close. Is that the right number? It may be, or it could be more. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So that may be a true number there, the 7.5.
It just seems to me that if that's 7.5 feet and your parking spaces all work for you, then there can be some landscaping in that path as well as on the Wrightsville side, as long as it's not a site.
I don't think they're objecting to landscaping. They're just objecting to certain parts of it. I think what we all have an issue with is blanketed doing away. I just don't know if we need to get you to go back to the table and say, okay, what's the maximum we can do, or the minimum, whatever you want to do, and come back and say, okay, we'll do it, but let's modify all these standards to accommodate, I don't know how we,
20% or
how we
25%
can
or-
take them down without doing away with them. so that we can do a case by case and say, okay, fine, maybe we'll get rid of some of these buffers, because clearly some things just can't work.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I just don't know
That's
how
what
we
we're
move
modifying in some
forward.
Reasonable way.
I think we all want to make it happen. Is there a way to say 4 through 7 is on a case by case basis?
Or I think you do that, or you, and we can have different talks about it, Faison and I, but you could reduce the number of trees or something.
Yeah,
Or a small lot
Right.
exception or something, you could do that.
or reduce that. I mean, that's what I was trying to kind of go through as she talked about it, what the things are that they clearly,
Right.
that's limiting them. And one of them was that in between the bumper and the sidewalk, maybe we reduce that, or do away with, not all of it, but how can we,
Okay.
and what works for them might not work for the next one. So how,
Right.
how can we make it where those standards can work for each piece of property of those small lots?
If it doesn't work for subsequent properties, then they're gonna come and they're gonna seek some sort of mediation as to how can they
Right.
accomplish it, so.
So is it possible to say that these 4
Yeah, I think,
items will
well, I don't know
be?
about that, you could, I think Faison and staff and maybe our town manager or town attorney can look at that and she could come up with something as a,
Okay,
to keep them in there, but maybe to modify them just for
Yeah.
small.
So is it, you'll have to ask Brian, I guess, Eads and Faison, is it possible to make a statement, something to the effect that it is recognized that standards or existing requirements 4, 5, 6, and 7 are not
Tenable?
tenable on our, what we've defined as a small lot, and all considerations will be given in the CUP to address the need to meet these as closely as possible. And I'm getting wordy with it, but if you could just word it somewhere, as you and all have suggested, every time we get a CUP, we're open to talking about, reduced landscaping requirements because they just aren't feasible. I think
Oh, I
that's,
see how you read it. Is that
Yeah.
possible?
Well, I think the best thing is to, for the attorney to come up with
some wording.
still keep in 4, 5, 6, and 7, and then come up with some language about reducing it. But I think we need to have something when we go to the CUP and down there in a text amendment. So we don't bring you 5 trees and you wanted 8 trees or,
Yeah,
yeah.
Right,
So
right.
I think that's something we could work on, and 4, 5, 6, and 7, bring it back.
are you okay with that as a petitioner to go that way?
I mean, I think we're all excited about
Yeah,
what you're looking at and have no issues that it's just more in how it pertains to things down the road. And we just,
other properties.
yeah.
I do have one other question, and maybe I'm reading it wrong. Number 3 under J, right above those 4, 5, 6, and 7, it says, the rear yard minimum setback shall be 10 feet, but only with regard to accessory structure decks and or patios. So does that mean the main building does not have to comply with that 10 feet?
That was intended to mean that the setback currently in effect remains for anything other than decks, patios, and accessories. So this change only applies to accessory structures, patios, and decks.
Okay, gotcha. I guess I read it.
Or maybe, well, I mean, but if if there is a misinterpretation, then I want to make sure we word it correctly still. Yeah, the idea is, for instance, the rear
10.
yard.
Page 10,
Yeah.
number 3.
And it looked
rear
like,
yard setback stays exactly the way it is for the building.
The setback stays for the main building
Right,
as is. Okay, gotcha. Number 3 is the one I kind of read wrong.
This rear yard minimum.
What Faison just said is the current setback requirements will remain. But that will be making a little bit of an exception for accessory structures, decks, or patios. So that'll be 10 feet instead of more. Okay. So where does the board want to go with this?
just,
So
Really, the only thing you're doing is just giving them permission to put decks or patios or something. You're not really changing any of the setbacks, except that you're putting these accessory structures, decks and patios.
Well, you're changing the setbacks for the structures, right? The accessory structures,
Accessory structures,
Yeah,
yes,
but not.
not the
the main.
structure
main.
itself.
Yeah.
And the exact design of a deck could include things overhead, right?
Sure. Like a roof,
Awnings or
yeah, like a roof.
Just not, like this, an actual enclosed building, but yeah, definitely could have a roof, I think.
I mean, hopefully we'll have a roof.
Things like that.
it seems that the approach you were suggesting, Jim, which is working through the CUP approach, gives the flexibility to the property owners and to the board to work in a sensible way rather than try to get this right, certainly not by exempting stuff, by trying to redefine a modification that's going to work for a bunch of properties we really don't know about.
Yeah, and that was Cheryl and Karen's suggestion. I thought it was a good angle good direction to go with it. I think it was yours too, wasn't it?
Mhm.
To go that
Fair,
direction. So does somebody want to make a motion to some effect of what we're gonna send back to staff, I guess?
Can I make a,
Oh, yes, ma'am, go ahead.
if you can, bifurcate this so that if you are open to the first part, which is the changes to the setbacks, but sending me back to talk to the client and work with the engineers on the exemption parts, that would be helpful because then we can get some movement on Kevin's end, at least, so they know that they can have outdoor seating.
That makes sense.
If that's
Yeah.
possible,
Okay.
but
Yeah,
basically-
that's what anything we can do to allow you to move forward is fine.
Yeah.
So can we just approve it
1 through 3.
and, leave 4, 5, 6, and 7 as is until she comes back with something, Tony?
Until further
Do you really
assessment.
want that like that, or can we?
Well, I mean,
Would it be better to table it?
what I don't want to do is not be able to do anything until I come back a month from now.
Right.
I
But
am,
it still can't go to the Board of Aldermen. I mean,
until it's finished.
First part, yeah.
yeah, so what I'm thinking,
Not
even if they say, well, we're gonna approve 1 through 3, that doesn't give you, all we're doing is make a recommendation. The board is the one the Board of Aldermen are the one who really sets it in stone.
Right.
So are we jumping the gun to say, well, you can do this, you know?
She could just suggest that the planning board approved
Right,
this part, but the board has to approve. At least it'd give him something to offer a client.
Yeah.
the
So
thing
we
is,
go back and, I mean,
yeah,
we may say move forward with Board of Aldermen, at least on the first part. I hate to do that to break it into two, but.
yeah,
Just approve it 1 through 3 and leave the 4, 5, 6, and 7 as they stand.
Or does it make sense to just rewrite 4, 5, 6, and 7? To
Why
rewrite
can't we do it next month?
Rewrite a separate,
But that's gonna require her to
Yeah.
leave, and she's trying to get something that'll go now.
So if we approve the 1, 2, and 3 as a text amendment, and then the rest gets kicked into a CUP approach.
Yeah,
The word exempted is what bothers everybody.
Yeah,
and I think you could do that, because you can get exempt from all of those things in some way, shape, or form with the CUP. Correct, Tony?
well, I think you could do it through the CUP, but then what are they gonna bring back to you? Because we don't know we hadn't talked about how many trees or anything like that, so they're not gonna know what to bring back to you and show in a plan, I don't think. So I think it's important to address 4 through 7. I think if it was me, I would like to just, and I'm just saying this, continue it to the next meeting, bring it all back just like it is. And address 4 through 7 and keep it as the same ordinance number 2021-1832. That way we don't have to re-advertise. I think we have the direction to bring it back to you, so.
Okay.
So you just
So
want
you-
different wording.
you're okay with that?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and I will.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Leanne, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
we
Please
keep
help to hear me.
forgetting you.
We don't have to decide this tonight. It seems like 4 through 7 being an issue or not an issue, something we need to have Brian look at, and we're here discussing it. Personally, I don't feel comfortable going through voting for 1 to 3. I would like to send the whole thing to the Board of Aldermen, nice and tidy. But I don't feel like we can do that tonight. So maybe we should do what we want to do with 4 through 7 and then come back to this at our next meeting.
Yeah, I think
That's what we said.
we just heard Sutton say that that was going to be okay.
Okay.
It'll work for them and it'll work for staff. And I think it sounds like the planning board's good with that too, that
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't,
we've
I
given, we've sent Sutton, or the petitioner, the message that we're good with this, with the exception of 4, 5, 6, and 7. And they'll
Okay.
work on that and get it
But
nice
we're
and
not-
tidy for the board.
but we're not going to send something to the Board of Aldermen right now, right?
No, 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 no.
No.
Okay, good. That's what I was saying. Okay. All right, I got it.
I'm drinking.
But I think you get the consensus that we're all okay with those first 3.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you need to take back. I know we can't put it in an official pass or whatever, but I think from
I think if
everybody's
you have the
conversation.
understanding and know that it's, you know.
So is someone willing to make a motion stating that in general, this board is looking at this positively, but we need more clarity on issue items 4, 5, 6, and 7. And we'll,
I'll make the motion.
well, that was easy.
And I'll second it.
All right. Any further discussion?
So she's using the words that came out of your mouth as promotion.
I hope so, right?
I don't want to make her repeat
I
it.
can make the motion, you know. I really
Robert,
want me
did you
to-
get it down?
Question, General?
Robert?
I mean, it's being recorded and streamed, so I
Perfect.
can pull it
Thank
from the
you.
minutes.
Perfect. Thank
Jim, it
you.
seemed like you were going to continue the statement until.
No, I was pretty much done.
Well,
Um,
were you going to suggest or thinking in terms of how we will get this bottomed out? Where the responsibilities lie for giving the feedback at the next round? Is there something specifically from staff? Is there something specifically from the?
I think we'll work with Faison, town manager ourselves, and maybe Brian, if we have to.
Right.
We have 30 days so
Bring it
we'll bring you
back.
something back.
Okay, could I request, and I think the board would like this, could we see that wording a week or two before the
See,
meeting?
that's the only bad thing.
We can't.
At the last minute, everything changes. And Faison knows, like last week, we met and we saw our issue. In the perfect world, yeah, I'd like to send it out 2 weeks before. It seems like there's always something that the last minute we missed and we have to go, but we will try to do that.
Get it
We'll
to us
try
as
do
soon
what
as
we can
possible.
advance to you.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
we'll
the sooner
try
the
to,
better.
yes.
Okay.
I think there's a piece of homework, not to belabor this point, but to come to grips with what are the parking standards and the landscaping requirements. So that when we finally sit down and make some decisions here, we understand what's being stripped out of this and what we're left with. And we've all indicated, I think, or we will when we vote, indicate a positiveness of modifying it, so we both accomplish what town needs and what you guys need.
Yeah, great.
Great.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second.
Yep.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You with this? And
She
Leanne
raised-
raised her hand too, Robert. I don't know if you saw that. I would offer, I think everybody's fine with it. If you all want to reach out to us for comments.
Yeah,
We're
as soon as we
working on
get
this.
everything together, we'll send it to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or we could email our concerns into them in the meantime. If everybody's good with that. Okay,
Okay.
well, thank you.
Thank you so much. We're excited.
Yeah.
Get something else
Yeah.
in there.
And you're gonna find out about the rights recorder plan.
Yes.
if it complies with that. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
So next, does anyone have any old business? I have a couple. I'll go through them real quick. You can just put them down, let me know what's going on with the pet wash stations.
We have a list of things, and that's on our list. That's
Good.
on- It's
Okay.
on Robert's list, so yes, that's one of them.
And I still don't see any porta john tie downs anywhere, and we're in the middle of the hurricane season. And the one blew over next to me the other day when we had that storm.
Okay,
And
And
it's a mess.
who secures those construction sites before these blow up storms?
we have a hurricane operation plan. We have all our duties, we call, hopefully.
Well,
the week
okay, but
before.
let's not hurricanes, but like the
Yeah,
thunderstorm that blew up the other
You know,
night, the one down on Salisbury, the neighbors were having to pick up big old pieces of sheetrock that had blown over into their yard, in the street. You know, they don't secure their stuff at night.
They don't, some do, most don't, so it's one of those things, we have a plan for hurricanes, but not for.
For every day.
Yeah,
Okay.
thunderstorms and stuff. So.
I figured you did on hurricanes, but yeah.
And then I still see a bunch of sites without silt fences. I mean, as you know,
Without what?
silt fences,
On the water side,
water side, but neighbors too.
okay,
And
Yes.
it's a mess when it rains. So then, new items.
Oh, yeah, no, I just,
That's it.
was talking about, earlier about maybe potentially increasing the cost of parking, and please don't hate me. But, I think it would be helpful for, the town of Wrightsville Beach itself and helping fund, the lifeguards, the police, the park rangers, the trash. I mean, the more influx of people we have, the bigger those problems and the more need for police officers and everything else we need. And obviously, money is an issue. And so I would be in favor of raising the price of parking to cover all of those issues.
and I think that's something as a group, y'all, Jim would pick up with a memo, we would take it, I would give it to town manager, and he would forward it to the Board of Aldermen.
Mhm.
Or you could reach out to each, the mayor and board, but you could do it officially, I think, as the planning board, maybe to your concerns if you wanted to do that, so.
And then Sam had mentioned, I hope you don't mind me saying that, maybe putting a cap on 20 or all day parking, but then increasing the hourly parking so that there's,
More movement,
yeah,
more available.
yeah,
So increase the fees on hourly parking.
yes,
And what I said is a cap on the price of all day parking.
yes, yeah.
So basically your angle is to try to encourage
Them to pay for the day.
all day parking. So there's not as much rotation and, okay.
Right.
Mhm.
And, obviously you can't, an
So,
hourly rate if somebody's there for 12 hours, is pretty stiff.
yeah, so without going into too much detail, are y'all okay with me just sending an email to this effect that we've discussed this at planning board? And would like, because a couple times we brought up some issues and the Board of Aldermen came back to us and said, no, we don't want to address that at this time.
And they may do that with this as well, since we
Yeah.
just increased parking last year.
Yeah.
Couple of years
But-
ago,
How many?
couple of years ago,
2 years ago.
2
So,
years ago.
but I think that, it's a valid, request with the influx of people to this area and the influx of people, on a daily basis or over the week. It's crazy. And the town needs to be able to pay police officers and park rangers and cleanup crews. And I mean, I went walking down Sunday morning down to the downtown area with my dog, and there's like pizza everywhere, paper plates, there's like
Downtown is
trash
disgusting.
everywhere.
That's related.
Our
to-
downtown area.
I
is
know it is, but somebody's got to clean
It's
that up the
happening on
next
the
day.
weekends too. I mean, during
Yeah.
the day. I mean, the
Yeah.
thing is, COVID has forced everybody to areas like here, and that's not gonna change for a while.
I don't think it's ever gonna change.
Well, not anytime soon.
No, this COVID thing's hitting home. I was just telling Kitty the trolley stop's closed because of COVID. My boss's son has it. So now we had to reschedule all of our in-person meetings for tomorrow, so.
Can I make a motion that we
Yes.
give permission for Jim to send a letter, an email to, who's the town manager?
I would say
Tim?
the town manager, he can forward it on.
Okay.
Tell me you want it forward to the board.
On behalf of us as a planning
Okay.
board.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Dan?
Leanne?
She said.
No,
Yeah.
I'm an I, but I just don't, I think it's not gonna work. I think that they just did it 2 years ago and they're probably not gonna do it again, because I think there would be they will get a ton of backlash over the park, because everybody is so already
Okay.
angry at the price it is now. I hear it all the time.
It's
So
okay.
I'm an
Yeah.
I, I'm
You know,
not.
but
It's all right.
the expense of hiring people to check the meters, that everything else is going up. I
I know.
mean,
I
It
understand
is.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
you know, at least we take a chance at it. I mean, that's all we can do.
Doesn't hurt to suggest it.
No.
Well, they've got an election coming up. Maybe they'll be voted out if they don't. They're not-
I mean,
they're
we're
not voting, so
personally
they're
on-
not gonna-
No
One
one in
thing I
Wrightsville
say-
Beach would vote them out for that.
I
No.
want to add one, I want to add one thing. We are trying, in my neighborhood, we are trying to get Wayne Boulevard reduced to 25, which is so
Yeah.
necessary. 35 is too fast on that street because it makes everybody go 45. I know what we're up against just trying to do that right now. And we've already had the DOT come out and sit and look. And I know what the trouble that we're running into right now are the roadblocks that we're having in trying to get something that is so necessary, because somebody is going to be killed on Waynick with all this influx of people and all of that. And I just know, it's almost laughable what we've come up against
So, but you're a yes for forwarding this
trying to
on.
do something.
Yeah, she voted yes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. So I'll do that. I'll copy you all on it so you can see that it was sent, and I'll copy you on it too, Tony.
Okay.
We
Yes,
can't hear you,
yeah.
Lynn.
She keeps going.
You keep going in and out.
Okay, I don't know what it is. I don't know.
I have one more new business. That AT&T box on Parmalee, somebody is going to get electrocuted. I called Bill Squires. You know what I'm talking about? It's an AT&T box that the fronts come off of it. And in the bottom of it are 4 batteries that are charging it. And Bill told me it was an AT&T box, and the front is off. And these kids had a lemonade stand about 2 weeks ago, and they were out there messing around. Somebody's like taped the lid to it, and it was laying on the ground. Looked like somebody came and propped it up against it. It's back on the ground. I don't know what AT&T's doing and why they're not fixing that.
Okay, I will.
If you get a chance,
Get with Buck in the morning, we'll look at it.
Yeah.
and See if we got a contact for AT&T.
you know, he said that he knew exactly what I was talking about, but if he can,
Okay,
I'm just worried those batteries could probably shock you if you
I'm sure.
got into them the right way.
Jim, I've got an item.
Okay.
I've got an item.
Okay, good.
I think I recall it's had something to do on Harbor Island where a contractor or somebody posted the construction working hours. And it seemed like a better practice. Did that get adopted as a standard?
Well, what we got to go ahead on is we ordered we have like 50 to 75 signs, and we're gonna start putting those out. So we do have those signs. So they didn't pass an ordinance saying you had to have it, but we do have them, and we do encourage that.
Good, because, they start whenever they want.
Yeah.
So where would you put the sign? On their, whatever,
At the construction
at the
site.
side?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
That
that
the
the
workers
person
can
building
see
is
it.
supposed to read the
Yeah,
sign?
and the neighbors can see it, and they know what their
Oh,
rights are.
okay.
It should include people who come and detail cars and power wash early in the morning too.
I mean, if somebody calls me and tells me that someone's working before construction hours on the island, I ride out and say something to them with a sign in my hand. I say, you guys can't start until 8. Here's a sign just to remind everybody. And I put it in their front yard.
What are the hours? 8 to,
8 to 6.
8 to 6, Monday through Saturday.
okay, no
But,
Sunday,
yeah.
right?
It's noise. It's not, they can show up. So they can show up earlier. It's just noise.
We had somebody cutting bricks on a
Oh,
Sunday.
yeah, that's noise.
Yeah.
Oh, no. And I took about as much of it as I could. Finally, I went over there with the printed up ordinance. This is, you're breaking the law. And they finally stopped. I didn't mean to be ugly, but it just,
Yeah.
cutting bricks is not nice.
I have one very important item for Leanne is, Leanne, you hear me? Leanne?
Leanne,
I will not be here next month, so Leanne will be running the meeting, but I want to make sure she hears.
She's like, oh,
I
man.
don't think she heard
No.
it
Just
yet.
signed out.
I'll
Call
email-
just dropped
I'll
it.
email her, let her know.
I'm texting her now.
Okay, thank you. I have to be out of
How
town.
convenient. Whoops, can't hear
Yeah,
you.
she-
Jim, gone. Hope you're going somewhere fun. If you're not gonna be here, I hope you're going somewhere fun.
Oh, I'm going to Aspen.
Oh, okay, you
I
are
got
going
a
somewhere fun.
great ski package deal.
In the middle of summer.
Now
Is
we're
that the
gonna do
food
some
and wine festival?
hiking and stuff. Oh, is there a wine festival going on out there?
There usually is. I think it's in July. though.
We'll find it.
Sure.
We'll find it. Anyone, Tony, you have anything? Do you have anything that we should know about that might be coming up or?
No, we've got a lot of things coming up, a few small things that we have to address. So the 160D is happening and we got to get on board with that, but we're very, very busy. I mean, planning
Yeah.
and space is busy, so.
Oh,
Yeah.
imagine.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Robert Kitty motioned and Cheryl seconded.
Thank you. That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
What's the 160D?
Oh, I don't know.
That he was talking about? He said we got the 160D coming up.
160D is the new state statutes. Like all of our ordinances come from chapter 160A, and 160D replaces 160A. It's basically the chapter of state statute that grants authority to municipalities for zoning and land development.
Okay. It's a little complicated, isn't it?
It will be.
Robert, is the ability to remove trees part of that?
That hasn't made it through yet. That'll be rewritten plenty of times before we see something voted on. I'll be right up there. I have to turn the stuff off.
Thank you.